Welcome to Dr. Dorian's House of Killers, where we take a look at all your favorite killers and see how they could be implemented into Dead by Daylight. Today, we are going to look at the vampire Nosferatu, the true undead. This is kind of one where I'm kind of a bit hyped about, because that would probably be the first killer that you could actually make, well, pretty or attractive, whatever you may call it, since there are vampires that range from ghoulish, flesh-eating, monstrous long teeth and claws to a sparkly, pretty click-clack vampires. You know, the ones that sparkle in the sun. There is a whole range, and I don't even know if it would be a licensed killer or not. Actually, well, I would probably enjoy if from Queen of the Dead, Damned or something, there would be skins, but well, that's one thing. That's neither here nor there. Okay, as we always start, speed would be 115%, 4.6 meters per second. A size would be tall, although not the tallest of them all. Terry radius would be big. And the map effect, in case you're unfamiliar with it, I am of the opinion each killer should have a map effect regardless of what powers they have. And I feel like killers should have alternating powers so that you don't know what, even if you know what killer it is, which powers he took. And then those can further be changed with add-ons. This map effect would be, I don't know if it would be necessary or not, because most of the powers don't really work with a map effect, but, you know, when you think of Dracula, you think of Van Helsing. So my idea was Van Helsing wagons, which I would think are like a additional chest, which you can search for, and maybe they would actually give some kind of protection against the vampire if you take that. Or you can alternatively take like an item, but then when you take an item, or when you take the protection, whatever it is, you get a curse on you that gives you sort of a debuff. That would be my idea. Of course, there might also be something in there for the killer. It might also be interesting to have a object that the killer can loot. Anyway, first power would be Vampiric Dash. The vampire can dash as mist or bats through pallets or windows, blocking them for 5 seconds. So it's sort of like a Vault from the Legion, only it has a blocking ability. I would probably make it so that you can use that sort of like a token ability. You can use it every 1, 2, 3 tokens, and then it takes a while to recharge or something like that. Alternate power 1, Vermin Lord. The vampire can summon a swarm of vermin, and this is a random occurrence. It isn't always the same, so it would be randomly generated. Either bats, rats, flies, or whatever other kind of vermin one could associate with vampires. Depending upon the vermin, the effects are exhaustion, lowered vision, lowered speed, and slow vault, for example. Or lowered speed and slow vault. So different types. Alternate power, a second alternate power 1. Look into my eyes. A survivor who looks into the eyes of the vampire, of course, looking into the eyes would be only in air quotes. I guess gazing upon the killer would already be enough, as long as there's no object in between. But a survivor who looks into the eyes of the vampire can be affected with a hypnotic vision. Whenever the killer gets close to the survivor might see the killer approaching from a different direction with terror radius and all. So, let's say the killer comes from one side, But for that survivor, it looks like the killer comes from the other side, and there is no real indication for a certain amount of time that the killer is actually coming from this side, maybe until he moves, maybe a certain amount of time, who knows, but that would be the effect. Power 2. Spy's eyes. The vampire can choose a raven and see what the raven sees. That's in addition to the first power. Vampire power 3. Yummy. The vampire leaps forward a short distance and tries to bite the target. Should he succeed, the survivor loses 1 health bar. This continues until the survivor is free from the vampire's blood sucking or the survivor is downed. So there is a sort of a struggle effect, and the survivor can try to struggle free. Here, I would say that there might actually be some kind of. Let me take a look at the last power that I thought of, and then I'll continue with what I was about to say. Power 4, my minion. A survivor who dies gets resurrected as a minion of the vampire. Should the minion contribute to the vampire's success at the end of the match, he gets additional rewards, pip points, and blood point rewards, so something like that. Of course, this would be pretty broken, or should a survivor actually decide to support the killer after being resurrected. Here, maybe the Van Helsing wagons would actually be of benefit, like some kind of protection or something. And this effect, for example, would also only work with, for example, Yummy. You know, you have to get bitten in order to be turned, right? And maybe it wouldn't count as a kill if you suck somebody dry on their third hook instead of the third hooking them. That might be an idea. Or they are down on the floor. You know, they don't count as hooked when you use the Yummy power to down them. Also, I was thinking about maybe it would be an idea to have some kind of buff powers, that instead of having this would be a third alternate power 1, I guess. That instead of having whatever I said as alternate power 1, you could get sort of like a blood ability points, and then you can either use them, then they get spent, or you can or they actually give you a passive buff like movement speed, braking, and stuff like that. Because theoretically, vampires are extremely powerful. They can tear, and depending upon the vampire, they can tear things apart. They can use magic. They can use pretty much anything. A vampire is like the dark version of here, insert superpower. So maybe something like, you gain 1 blood point for each training, and if you have 6, you can instant kill somebody, but then they go back down to 0. Unless you suck somebody dry, then it's down to 3. And, well, you get the picture. And each point gives you 1% more speed, 1% more braking speed, and stuff like that. And you can maybe stack it to infinite. So that would be some interesting gameplay. You can either then sacrifice your points or save up points to get more abilities. And depending upon what abilities you get, you understand what I'm saying, right? Okay, so let's get to the perks. And I have I had to add 1 flavor text because vampires, right? So this is one of the most famous ones, famous quotes or flavor text. But first, the perk would be rats, ! And the flavor text would be rats, rats, rats. Thousands, millions of them, all red blood. All these will I give you if you will obey me. It's a quote from Renfield out of Dracula. Rats will wander the map. When close to a survivor who is not working on a gen and not crouching, they will squeak and follow the survivor. While following the survivor, they will squeak every 15 seconds. Squeaks give a visual cue to the killer. After 15 seconds of crouching, the rats will lose interest in that survivor. 2, 4, 6 rats are on the map, depending upon the tier of the perk that you have. Yeah. And the next one would be bloody pools. 10, 15, or 20 bloody pools spawn on the map. Survivors that walk through the bloody pools leave red footprints for 30 seconds after entering the pools, and that doesn't matter if you're crouching or not. The last perk would be Hex. Touch but don't look. Every 8, 6, 4 skill checks of the team. So every 8, 6, or 4th skill check of the team, of the time, a skill check of the time is barely visible. Okay, so every 8th, 6th, 4th skill check the team has, somebody of the team has, is barely visible. Skill check happen more often, but spawn at whomever is doing a skill check, skill checkable action. I was a bit, talking a bit weird because the way I wrote it down. So in effect, every 8th, every 6th, or every 4th skill check is barely visible. You can almost not see it, or maybe even the skill check zone is barely visible. But the skill checks are triggered more often, and it is triggered at a random survivor who is doing a skill checkable action. So if only one person is working, he gets skill checks more often, and he gets all the barely invisible ones. That would pretty much be it. What do you think of this killer? Write in the comments. Tweet at me. Link in the description. Come onto my Twitch. Talk to me about it. If you have any suggestions, improvements, alterations, let me know. And I wish you a happy evening. And until next time, toodles.